Welcome to the Data Hall YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to look into the Putexcel command, which takes different inputs from Stata and saves them in Excel. So you can write certain values, you can save certain results from Stata, export them from Stata into Excel. Now, this isn't an ideal command if you like to have regression results in ready to publish style, because for those we already have built-in commands, or like the user written commands like out2 or asdoc, or we have estout, tab command. There are certain others. Now those are pretty easy to use if you want to take summary statistics or t-statistics or regression results and put them into Excel or Word file. This command would come in handy if there are certain specific formats that you want to do. There are certain reports that you want to generate, let's just say on daily basis or more frequently. And for that you need to have a way where you can create a report from Stata, and that report is created in Excel. So either it is any kind of a result for which you do not have any built-in command, or a unique kind of a format, or a more frequent kind of a report that you want to do. So first thing, if you want to download this do file, you can download this from the link given in description. This Putexcel command would start with Putexcel set, right? So this is the command, and then we give the name of the Excel file where the results would be saved. So this just sets a results file, and it wouldn't do anything. The file would not be created yet, but it would just set the environment for the file to be created, for the material to be written into the file. So we do Putexcel set results. This would be the file name, and it tells me that a file had been this Excel results file had been set. Now if you already had this results file in your system, you can just use the replace option. So that would replace whatever current file was there. So if there wasn't any file, that is fine, but if there was file with the same name, then you can use the replace option. Then you can create any sheet within this workbook. So that would be a worksheet. You can name that worksheet, or if that worksheet is already created, you can again use the replace option within this sheet option, right? But let's stick with our main default sheets. So how do we add text? So first step would be to set a sheet, an Excel file, and then the second would be to write results. Last would be to save those results, or to save that Excel file, or to close the environment of that Excel file. Okay, so we start with the command name, and then we write the cell name. So in Excel, we know that, let me open an Excel file. This is an empty Excel file, and you know that there are columns that are named in alphabets, and then there are rows that are numbered, and the intersection of alphabet and rows would create a cell. So this cell would be called B3. This specific cell would be called A1. So we need to give the reference of the cell. So in this case, I want to write certain text in this A1 cell, then equal to, and then whatever string we want to write. So let's keep it simple. This is cell A1. I execute this command, and now you would see that this Excel file had been created in my working directory. You can set the working directory if you haven't set that by clicking on file, change working directory, and then you select the working directory. Or what you can do is you can use the cd command and write the path of your working directory, so whichever suits you. But anyhow, by default, wherever this do file is, the Excel file would be created in that specific folder. Okay, so this is the Excel file that is created, and you can see that it is saved. So whenever you are going to execute the Putexcel command, it would write something and it would automatically save that. The sheet is the default sheet 1. So because I didn't named or created any specific sheet, and the text would come into cell A1. Okay, so that was pretty easy, but normally we wouldn't just want to write specific text in Excel. We would want to perform certain analysis and write those analysis into Excel file. So let's import a data. So we are going to use the auto data, and let's regress. So we have different variables. We have price of the car, its weight, its length, etc. Let's regress price on weight and length, and we get these results. Now, if you are familiar with scalars and macros, we have covered that in one of our video, and I would give that link in the description of this video. You can access those. I mean, every result is saved into a scalar or a macro or a matrix. So you can access those matrix by writing return list, and it would give you the list of those scalars or macros. So these are the scalars. So the number of observations are stored in this en scalar, and there are certain macros, and then we have matrices. So we are interested in this matrix for now. It stores the coefficients. This is a vector that stores the coefficients. So we have 3 parameters. We have weight, length, and constant and their coefficients. So we have 1 into 3 vector. So it would store the 3 coefficients, right? And we want to access those coefficients. For now, we are just interested in that. So what we can do is, there are multiple ways of doing it, but we would do with the matrix command, write the matrix, the command name, then any matrix that you want to store these results in, then name of that matrix and this apostrophe sign. So once I do this, you won't see anything in the variable window, or it would just, the output window would just show that the command had been executed, but it would create a matrix by the name of B. So what we want to do is we want to again use the Putexcel command as we did over here. But now instead of A1, we want to save the results in A2. And what do we want to save is this matrix B, right? We know it contains the coefficients. I would discuss these in a second, but let's execute this command. And remember, whenever you are going to execute the Putexcel command, you do not need, you have to close the Excel file that it is going to use. So I just closed the results.xls file, otherwise it would give an error. So let me also show you what error would you get. So the Excel file is open. We'll discuss these results, but let me just show you the error that you would get. So it is, what it says is file results could not be saved. So normally people cannot understand from this error that what it is saying is that the Excel file is open and you need to close that Excel file. But anyhow, we had a matrix of 3 into 1, and that was this matrix. So we asked it to store it into A2, this whole matrix, and it did in A2, right? But because the length of the matrix is greater than just one cell, so it would occupy the other cells also. Now what this row name does is it gives us the row names as well, right? So the name of the variables. And this n format number underscore d2 limits the number of decimal points to 2 decimal points. Now there are different options that we can use. We can either use names, and with names it would give us both the column name and the row name. You can see that we do not have any column name over here. So what is the dependent variable? Or we can just write column names and it would just give us the column names. In this case, we just used the row names, so we have only the row names. But let's use names instead of row names. And let's close this Excel file, not save it, and rerun this command, and let's see what would happen, because we want the row name as well. So now we have the column name and as well as the row name, but the column name doesn't look much pretty. So we aren't getting the price over here. Rather, we should see, instead of y1, we should have price, the word price over here, because price was the dependent variable or some other thing that we would want. For that, what we can do is we can save column names using this command. So matrix column names, let's call it, rather than B, let's call it C, because it would contradict with our B matrix. And let's have the value of price over here. It is a string, and re-execute this command. So this Excel file would be resaved. Okay, so I made a mistake. I needed to add this B matrix, because what we want is we want to take this matrix B and change the column names from y1, whatever the name is, to this value. So instead of changing the column name, the matrix name, it should be the same matrix name. So now it would work. Okay, so now we can see that we have got the price column name over here. Okay, so let's move to other aspects. We can modify a file. So let's just say we already had this results file we created some other day, and now we already have it. We wouldn't want to replace it. And if we execute this command again, we came back to this do file, we executed this command again, it would say that this file already exists. You must either use the modifier or replace option. I cannot use replace option because I want to keep the current data in the Excel file intact. So what I'm going to use is the modify option. So remember, if you already have a file, you do not want to replace it, you do not want to delete it, you just want to modify certain aspects of it, then you are going to use the modify option, right? So I also want to save the R square. So I want to write the word R square in the column A5, in the cell A5, and the actual R square from the above model in B5. So if I can go back towards that return list, you can see that R square is saved in this scalar. So this is what we are trying to access. So remember, to access this scalar, we would have to use these signs. Okay, so let's execute these two commands, and let me show it from the Excel file. You can see that it is saved in A5, but instead of A5, I should have saved it in A6 because I deleted the constant from here. Okay, we can also change the formatting, we can have the header, because we would want the table to look like a table, right? So here I would also like to introduce the concept of range. So we can have a single cell value, which we did over here, but we can also have a range, and we can select range using colon sign. So what we want to do is we want cell A1 till B1, right? We want to have a border at the bottom of the cell, and we want it to be bold. So let's execute this, and then I would like to show it to you. So what would be the result? Okay, so what it did is it this cell, because what we told the command is that select cell A1 to B1, this one, and then we want it to be bold, so it changed the formatting of that cell. And we want to add the border at the bottom of those cells, so it draw a border line on those cells. I would also want to have that border line over here. So what I did is I selected A5 to B5, and I also want to have a border line. So instead of bold, I would just have a border line, right? Let's execute this, and we know what result it would show us to. We can also add images in the Excel. So let's just say you frequently generate a report where you have certain graphs, let's just say bar chart of the price. So what we can do is we can create a bar chart, let's just say, of the mean values of price for let's just say different categories, right? Both for foreign and domestic manufactured cars. So we would have a bar chart, and what we would want to have is, this is the bar chart that we have. We would want to save this bar chart as a PNG file, right? It would be an image file instead of the Stata formatted file, right? So we use graph export name of the file as PNG. This is the option that we ask Stata to save that file as a picture. And let's name this, let's give it the name of the graph that we want to save. And it would save that graph as a picture. Now we want this image to be in G2 cell, right? So we use the Putexcel, then the cell name, and we use the image function and give it the name or the address of that specific image. Okay, so how does it look like from the Excel? Okay, so we have that image over here. We can do multiple things with that, but for now we would stick to simple things. We can also format cells. So let's just say cell A1 to A5, which contains the rather A2 to A5, which contains the name of the variables. We want it to be bold, italic, and we want to change its font size and its color, right? And we also want to have okay, let me just first show these changes to you. Okay, so now we have bold, italic, and whatever formatting we did. So now what we want is, instead of this weird text over here, I want to have this table, a name and a description. But I want the cell to be merged, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it that from cell A1 to C1, so this is a row of 3 cells, right? I want this text to appear in this cell. It should be aligned rightwards, right? So we have alignment, left alignment, horizontal center, vertical center, right alignment, and also want these cells to be merged into a single cell, right? So this is executed. So now you can see that it is aligned. The alignment is right. You can see that from here also. It is bottom aligned, and the cell is merged, because you can see that it is now a one cell. Okay, we can also have dates, because if we just so let's generate a variable called date, and let's have it a date, right? So what I'm doing is I'm using the date function, and I have a video on this date, how to format dates in Stata. So for Stata, I need to explicitly tell it that whether how is the formatting of the date. So it is DMY, which stands for day, month, and year. So let's generate this variable and let's format this variable as TD. So now I have a variable and this variable contains the date, but the formatting of date is different in Stata and in Excel. So if I just export this date into Excel, it would look quite, it wouldn't be human readable. So let me replace all this results file so we can have a fresh start with this file. Okay, so let's put this date variable in cell A1. You can see that we got this number over here instead of date, and the reason is that this is how this date was internally stored in Stata. And we do not want this. We want it to be a date and not a string representing a date, but rather an actual date which Excel can understand as a date, right? So let me execute this command. So this is the same as the first one, but I have used the as date option. And now you would see that with this as date option, what it would do is it would convert Stata date into Excel understandable date format. So now you can see that this is the date. And if you click over here, you can change that to long or short, because now Excel recognizes it as a date. So if it wouldn't recognize it as a date, it wouldn't be able to perform these formatting functions on it. We can also write it as a text, but then it would just appear as a text, and it wouldn't be converted into Excel format of date. For that, if you have a specific date, let's just say each time you generate a report and you want a specific date to appear, rather than generating a variable, you want to give it a specific date, then you would have to use this this method. So let me execute this so we can compare these two. So I'm using the as date option and this expression over here, and let me show it to you from the Excel file. So now you can see that all these three looks similar, but internally they have a different structure. This one is just a number, and it isn't the correct date that Stata would represent, Excel would represent. This is a correct date format which we generated using this code, using the as date option. This looks similar to this B1 and D1, but it again have a different structure. It is considered a text rather than a date, so you cannot change the date, or if you drag it downwards, the year would change, but because it is considering it a text rather than a date. If you would do that with the Excel understandable date, it would change the date rather than, the last command is again the correct format, which is coming from again the as date option. So you have to use the as date option if you are working with dates and you want to convert the Stata date into Excel dates. You can have as date time, or some other functions that can work with dates. Lastly, we can either describe an Excel file, right? So what the current file is, the Excel file we are working with, what is the write mode, what is the sheet name, etc. If you forgot where you were, you can save that Excel file and you can clear this Excel file. So now you have cleared, and if you do the describe, it will tell you that there is no specific file attached to this memory of this data. So I hope that was useful. And do hit the subscribe button and do hit the bell icon, and stay tuned for more videos.